All right. Hello, everyone. If you are listening, thank you for taking the time. Um, my presentation is going to be on sensory interventions for adults with dementia. So here is a little case study that is based off of one of the patients that I've been working with. Mrs. M is an 87-year-old female who was admitted to sniff care following a congestive heart failure exacerbation and progressive generalized weakness. Mrs. M has also been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She is awake during the nights, resulting in increased fatigue during the day. In her room, she is often withdrawn, simply dozing in her wheelchair or bed despite the noise around her. When staff go to see her, she offers little to no engagement or interaction, but will frequently startle at sudden loud noises and wince when touched unexpectedly. When therapy comes to work with her, she states that she does not want to do anything and becomes increasingly frustrated, often shouting no. She has decreased orientation to place, time, and situation, repeatedly asking where she is and what she is doing here. She will often ask over and over again where her husband is or where her purse is, despite being told just moments ago. She will not initiate any tasks, including walking with a walker, using the restroom, feeding herself, and getting dressed, and will become distressed when not given constant instruction. So, some challenges we see with Mrs. M are agitation, apathy or withdrawal from her environment, an inability to initiate, to sequence, and to continue tasks, heightened sensory awareness, particularly to touch and sound, disorientation, and perseveration. So, oops. What is sensory stimulation? Sensory stimulation is controlled exposure to environmental or sensory specific stimuli. For adults with neurocognitive disorders, this often involves the use of familiar objects or activities to evoke positive feelings through the arousal of the senses. So let's take a look at what the research has to say about this as an intervention. So literature suggests that overall sensory deprivation can contribute to behavioral problems in this population. Generally, sensory and multisensory stimulation is safe and effective to use with patients who have Alzheimer's. There's been several systematic reviews looking at sensory interventions. One from 2016 found promising evidence that sensory interventions can have positive effects on mood, social engagement, and occupational engagement. And then a more recent review looked at a bunch of different types of sensory interventions. And it found strong evidence for massage and tactile interventions, moderate evidence for music therapy, and moderate evidence for light or visual interventions. Like I said, this study looked at a bunch of different types of sensory-based interventions. So they also included occupation-based multi-sensory interventions, things like gardening, mealtime interventions, and animal therapy. I'm mostly going to focus on the massage, the tactile, music, and visual types of interventions because those are the ones that I feel we can implement in this type of facility more easily. So I'm going to talk about massage first. Massage has been shown to decrease cortisol and reduce stress, increase serotonin and dopamine levels, and decrease restlessness and agitation behaviors. Um, so there's several types of massages that can be given. A hand massage. This one's good because touching of the hands is a very familiar task, and we know that this population familiar tasks and objects are key. Then there's also slow stroke back massage and foot massages. So I'm going to switch my screen and show a short little video. It's a 5-minute hand massage that can be done with a client.
So, Peggy, I'm going to hold your hand here and support the forearm, and then give gentle movement in the wrist. We'll do gentle circles and then a technique called breaking the bread. as we break the bread, we'll start at the bottom of the hand and then work out to the sides. Work bottom to sides, bottom to sides. There are a few acupuncture points in below the wrist, so we'll give some soft pressure and massage very gently under the wrist area. After you have identified that area under the wrist joint, we'll come back to breaking the bread. Then there's some tendons and bones that we can use as a guide to work between the muscles of the hand. Running your fingers softly up in between the muscles of the hand. It feels extra nice to work in through the thumb area. Then you can actually flip the hand over to stimulate a nice acupuncture point on the back of the hand. How you do this is you bring their index and thumb finger together and then press on the top of the mound that you see created from bringing those fingers together. Gently massage in small circles. Turn their hand over once again and come back to breaking the bread, which will relieve tension in our overworked hands. Lastly, do some work around the fingers, one at a time. We'll start with a wiggle on each side of the finger, softly caterpillar walking up the sides of each finger, ensuring that you're pressing on both sides of the finger. The thumb is a big one, promoting a lot of relaxation. Once you do the sides, you can hold each finger from top to bottom, using the same caterpillar motion as you walk up and down the top and bottom of the finger. Always massage super gently with no need for traction or pulling. Come back one last time to breaking the bread. We'll finish by pulling up the hand, as it feels nice to get into the sides of that pinky area of the hand. We're activating more acupuncture points as we move down this pinky side of the hand. As we put the hand down, we'll do the same thing along the thumb side. As always, soft and gentle. We'll finish with very gentle, soft tissue work. And then take their hand one last time and we'll finish with very light stroking up through the heart, in the heart direction.
Okay. So that's massage. Next, I'm going to talk about music therapy. So music has been found to decrease agitation, relieve stress, and reduce anxiety and depression. It can provide emotional and behavioral benefits to patients with dementia due to preservation of key brain areas that are linked to musical memory. Studies have also indicated that listening to music activates motor areas of the brain. There's also strong evidence that music therapy improves autobiographical memory, behavior, and emotion of patients with Alzheimer's. So music therapy can be active or passive. For active, it just is that the patient has active participation in the creation of music. So things like humming or playing a musical instrument. And then passive is just you're playing the music and they're listening to it. So some tips when choosing to use music with patients: choose music that the patient enjoyed or that was meaningful to them. For instance, if they had a specific song that was played at their wedding, that might be something that they remember. Use music to set the mood you want. So slower, soothing music is going to calm the patient down, or upbeat and fast-paced music will hopefully increase alertness and boost their mood. You want to try and eliminate competing noises. So, for someone who's really sensitive to sounds, and isn't good about filtering out lots of sound, maybe playing music in the really noisy gym isn't the best idea. You want to try to go somewhere quieter. Um, Encourage movement. So foot tapping, hand clapping, dancing can all be good. And then singing along can help boost memories that are linked to music. So I have just a really short video here of a man with dementia listening to music.
And immediately he lights up. His face assumes expression. His eyes open wide. He starts to sing and to rock and to move his arms, and he's being animated by the music.
And he used to always sit on the unit with his head like this. He didn't really talk to much people. And then when I introduced the music to him, this is his reaction ever since.
Okay, so active tactile stimulation. We already sort of talked about passive tactile stimulation with massage. So active tactile stimulation is more the patient is involved in touching various objects themselves. So these types of things are a little bit less research based, but there's lots of anecdotal evidence surrounding them, tons of blog posts and information on websites that cater to memory care and to the care of people who do have dementia and Alzheimer's. So it's worth giving it a shot. I think it can be a good activity to keep people busy and to reminisce a little bit. So the first one is sensory themed boxes or rummage boxes. The idea here is to just fill up a box or container with various objects that have different sensory properties in them, and the person can just go through the box and feel and touch all the different objects. So you can make these into themes, or it can just be a box filled with like memorable items from that person's past. But some examples of the themed boxes would be gardening. So you can fill that one with things like soil, a packet of seeds, shovel, gardening gloves, things like that. A carpentry themed box with a tape measure, pencil, a ruler, and different types of tools. And then a baby themed box, for instance, if you have a client who really valued motherhood or talks about their children or grandchildren a lot, things like baby clothes, baby blanket, rattle, bottles, diapers in there. And these are relatively easy to make yourself. I mean, if you just ask like coworkers for donations, or neighbors or someone. It can also be a student project. I didn't know about this when I was doing my project, but if there's any students down the road who needed something, I think this would be a good idea. The other thing is fidget mats or fidget blankets. The idea here is that it just allows a person to use their hands for familiar tasks to alleviate agitation and restlessness. So they're not just, they have something in their lap that they can do. So they're not getting up and wandering and, you know. So here's an example, this one on the left, of a fidget pillow. So you can see there's patches of different fabric types. There's some beads here. This is Velcro that can just be, done and undone. A zipper in the middle. I've seen ones that have laces that can be tied and untied. So again, like just plopping this on someone's lap, it's gonna ease their boredom. It'll distract them, so they're not, wandering in the hallway or calling out for help all the time. And this on the right is a tactile mat. It's filled with gel. And the idea is to move this little black bead through the maze. The gel here can offer, a temperature sensation. So a cooling effect. I've seen ones that you can heat up with like water and it's warm. It can soothe arthritic hands or something like that. These two on the bottom are sensory boxes. So this one's more of a nature themed. It has things like pine cones, sticks, leaves in it. If you can't get your patient outside, but they really like nature, that could be something that's good for them. And then the other one is just filled with, different sensory objects that could just be a good distraction tool. And I have one more video here to show you about this. Okay.
A woman from Union County is trying to improve the quality of life for people with Alzheimer's disease.
She's using her love of art to make sensory blankets for residents in her senior living community. Newswatch 16's Nikki Kreis joins us live from the Central Pennsylvania newsroom. Nikki.
John and Julie, while attending an Alzheimer's support group meeting a few years ago, Ann Dobler noticed some people suffering from the disease and had restless hands. That's when she came up with the idea of fidget quilts.
Ann Dobler is busy in the art studio at Riverwood's senior living community near Lewisburg. She's making quilts for some of her fellow residents. But these aren't your average blankets. Ann calls them fidget quilts. A few years ago, Ann attended a support group meeting for Alzheimer's disease. She learned people with Alzheimer's deal with restless hands.
I'm wondering if, in fact, touching different things would be the way to go with that.
That's when Ann came up with the idea of fidget quilts for residents to feel and touch.
The touch, the feel, the memories of certain items, and for them, it's a special thing.
This blanket is for someone who likes flowers. Ann recently made one for a man who was a fisherman.
Somehow or other, he felt every time he was with that he was going fishing.
Ann wasn't always interested in art.
I didn't know the difference between acrylic and watercolor.
Ann recently went back to college at Bloomsburg University and got an art degree. She graduated at the age of 71. So far, Ann has made 17 of these quilts, and she has no plans to stop. Ann has been making the fidget quilts for about 3 years.
It's a delight. I have to tell you, I enjoy it. I hope other people find some benefit to it.
Okay, so I'm just adding this in here too, because I think this is something that's important for a lot of our dementia patients. And I think it can be considered a sensory intervention. It's very visual. And you can also incorporate some auditory stimulation into it as well. So reality orientation. This is used to reorient a person to self, time, place, situation, etc., and address confusion. A lot of people will sit there and every few minutes they'll wonder where they are and what they're doing here and what they need to be doing right now. And so this is just an easy way so that you don't always have to be with them. And it can kind of calm their nerves and help them understand a little bit better what's going on. So there has been studies that have shown that reality orientation can improve cognition and it can somewhat decrease behavioral challenges for individuals who have dementia. So these can be visual, or they can be a mix of visual and auditory. So for example, a daughter reminiscing through family photo albums and naming family members with the person. That's visual and auditory, but it's kind of reorienting to the person to self. Um, and then these little like bulletin board things, they can be created by staff or by family. Just putting the date on them, putting a picture, the time, what season it is, any special holidays that it is. Something else that you can do is just to have like a little note written that just reminds the person like what they're doing here, and maybe what the routine is, in case they really want to know that. So let's go back to our case study. These are some things that could be, implemented into a session with Mrs. M. So as a preparatory activity, you could begin a treatment session with just a 5 to 10-minute hand massage in order to decrease agitation and frustration and just kind of prepare her for the activity going forward. Reality orientation can kind of be incorporated throughout the intervention. So I know something that I have done with Mrs. M, and her family has done this, is they've just written a little note explaining where she is, why she's there, how long she's going to be there, stuff like that. It kind of reassures her that that her husband and purse are safe. You could also put some pictures up on her bulletin board or something like that. And you can even incorporate this type of stuff into your session yourself. Just, when you go get her, hi, Mrs. M, like, this is why you're here today, and this is what we're going to do now. When you're done, this is what's going to happen. The weather is sunny today, things like that, just kind of throughout the session. So some ways that you can use sensory interventions as a distraction, turning on preferred music while Mrs. M works on cardiopulmonary or strengthening exercise. She doesn't ever really want to do that, but the music can kind of be a distractor. Same for, working on standing tolerance or balance or ambulation, playing music, having her sing along, dance, stuff like that. It can be used as a means to an end as well. So for example, using a sensory box or a rummage box as a means to promote balance or standing tolerance, simply just having her stand at a table and go through the box can work on standing tolerance, but you can also manipulate the environment or her positioning to grade it up or down to achieve a goal. If you need to add more functional mobility into it, just put the box on a further away table or a table next to her, behind her, and incorporate some turning into it. Have her turn to grab something from the box and then turn back to the original table to, discuss it, stuff like that. And then education can always be done. So educating staff or family about creating or purchasing a fidget blanket, tactile mat, or a memory box for her to use with them or when they're not around. Discussing with them about creating reality orientation materials. I know families oftentimes looking for ways to, make it easier on their loved one. And this will also make it easier on staff in the long run if they're not having to constantly tend to the needs of these people. So that is all I have. These are the references if anyone is interested. But I hope that I offered some valuable information here. And again, thank you so much for listening.